Hi, my name is Orion Field. Welcome to Cooking with Orion. Today we're going to make a traditional bolognese with tagliatelle pasta. It's going to be great. Let's get started. Alright, first thing we're going to do is we're going to start by cutting up some celery and some carrots that we're going to be adding to our sauce. And we want to do those in some nice small dice. So what I'm doing first, before I do a fine chopping of the celery, is I'm going to cut them up into half moons as so. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the carrots and take out my chopper and chop them that way. Now that we have our celery cut up into small pieces, we can start chopping it with my chopper. I like to use this over a knife because it gives me a lot more control and things don't fly all over the place. And as you can see, that chops the celery into nice, small, fine pieces. That will be the perfect size to go into our sauce. And I'll start cutting up some of the carrots as well, the same way. Sometimes, as you can see, the chopper can become jammed. But just keep hitting it and it will stop and clear up and you can keep cutting. And as you can see, our carrots are nice and coarsely chopped. We only are going to need about, I think, a little less than a cup of each of these, so we have more than enough right here as it stands. I'm just going to cut everything and see where we end up with that. You know, it's all vegetables. Vegetables are healthy, so the more you put in, the healthier your dish is. Especially since we're going to be using some heavy cream later, and that will offset how healthy this is. But health isn't everything. There's something to be said about flavor. And this should be very delicious. Alright, now we've cut and measured out our carrots and celery, and we're going to start to brown the pancetta. What I'm going to do is I'm going to eyeball a tablespoon of olive oil into our nonstick pan that we have on medium-high heat. That's about it. And let that heat up. As you can see, we also have our water boiling for our pasta. That's just going to sit there for a while. We'll just, swirl that olive oil around the pan, let it get hot, nice and happy. And while we're doing that, we're going to open our pancetta. We're going to be using 8 ounces of pancetta. In our neck of the woods in Syracuse, we have to buy that prepackaged, but if you're in a big city, you could probably get it at your local butcher shop or at the grocery store from the deli. And once we'll throw a little piece in just to make sure it's hot enough. All right, so we'll dump it in. And the other package of pancetta. Someone really needs to invent some kind of way you can smell what I'm cooking here at home on your computers, because it smells pretty good. Alright, and now that we have that in there, we're going to keep that going in here until it's nice and browned and all the fat has dissolved. And that should take about 6 to 8 minutes. And we'll come back when that's done and start adding in the vegetables. Now the fat is melted in the pancetta and we're ready to add the vegetables. I already pre-measured out 3/4 of a cup of celery and 3/4 of a cup of carrots. We're going to put that in. And we're going to put in 1.5 cups of cut onion. Now, I bought the onion pre-cut just because I hate cutting onions. So, if you enjoy crying while you're cooking, then by all means cut your own onions, but I'm going to take a pass as soon as I get this open. I'm really lucky that my local grocer does this, so I don't have to. Okay, that's approximately 1.5 cups of onions. Alright. And we are going to keep cooking this now until all the vegetables get nice and soft. Which is what happens when you cook vegetables in pork fat. Alright, so what I did was I brought out my other cutting board, because you never want to put meat on a wooden cutting board. It's really bad, because it's really hard to clean. So, and as you can see, the vegetables are getting cooked really well, and it's time to start putting in the meat. So what we're putting in is a pound of ground sirloin and half a pound of ground veal. So let's put that in right now. And while we were on, while this was cooking up, I added some freshly ground black pepper and some of my special Himalayan salt from the salt grinder. But any old salt will do. If I didn't have that, I would default to kosher salt, which I really like to use for cooking as well. Sea salt also works good for that as well. And now we're putting in the veal. We're going to mix that all together. So what we're doing is we're cooking this until it gets to be thoroughly browned, which should take about 5 minutes. And as soon as that's done, we're going to add in the tomato paste. As you can see, I'm breaking up the pieces of the two meats so that it's going to be nice and fine. Now that the meat's all browned, it's time to put in 3 tablespoons of tomato paste. Since tomato paste is kind of thick, this is kind of the best you can do. We'll count that as 1. If there are any inventors out there watching, if someone could invent like a mini ice cream scoop in the size of 1 tablespoon, that would be perfect. And number 3. And that's basically it. And unfortunately, we can't save this. And once we have our tomato paste in here, we just mix it in. It's always good to use a higher sided skillet for making something like this, so that it doesn't end up all over your stovetop, which this sort of is a little bit, but we're keeping the damage down to a minimum. Now, we're going to add in our dry white wine and 1½ teaspoons of minced garlic. Starting with the wine, which we're going to leave in here until it completely reduces. And I have store-bought minced garlic. That apparently is difficult to open. There we go. Alright. And we need 1½ tablespoons of this. So we're going to do 1 tablespoon of garlic and ½ tablespoon of garlic. Just going to make it very yummy. And just stir that all in for about 2 minutes until all of the wine has evaporated. Now that the wine is mostly evaporated, we're going to add 1½ cups of beef stock, which we're going to cover and then let reduce. So I'm going to measure out 1½ cups. This is going to take about 10 minutes to reduce. Stir that in. Smells great. Alright, so now we've let this sit for 10 minutes, and as you can see, most of all of the broth has reduced to nothing. It's almost dry. So what we're going to do is we're going to add in half of our 1 cup of half and half, which is going to give the sauce a nice creaminess. Okay, so we retain half of a cup. We stir that in. And we periodically, over the next 30 to 40 minutes as it reduces, stir in the rest of that half cup. Alright, and as you can see, this is all done and we are ready to serve. I'm going to bring it out to the table right now. And that's it. It's simple. This is Orion Field. Thank you for watching.